A wonderful good morning to everyone. On behalf of the board, management, and staff of Export TT, we want to welcome you to today's online training program on patents and patent mining. Today we are joined by our facilitators, Mr. Richard Acheng, Senior Technical Examiner from the Intellectual Property IPO, and Krishan Maharaj, Capacity Building and Program Financing, Export TT Limited. Our key speaker, Mr. Richard Acheng, is a national of Trinidad and Tobago and is currently the manager of technical examination of the IPO office of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Acheng joined the staff of the IPO office of Trinidad and Tobago as a technical informational specialist in 1999. His present responsibilities as manager technical examination include, among others, performing substantive examinations on patents, utility certificates, industrial designs, new patent varieties, and integrated circuits, and advising the controller on all technical issues relating to the grant of intellectual property rights. Our second speaker is Krishan Maharaj. Krishan is the manager of the Capacity Building and Program Financing Unit, Export TT. Today, he will present on access financing to secure intellectual property for your company and products. Now, to improve the quality of this webinar, we are asking all persons to ensure that your video remains disengaged and mics placed on mute for the duration of the session. Note, all questions will be answered during the designated question and answer session. However, feel free to place all questions during the session in the chat box addressed to everyone. Please do not address the question directly to the facilitator. Because we have an extremely large group today, we encourage you to use the raise hand option during the question and answer session. You will be acknowledged and be allowed to unmute your microphone. Richard, over to you.
Great. Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our patent mining workshop, everyone. I really appreciate coming to spend the time with us. I want to thank especially Export TT for arranging this session. I really hope it would be the start of your investigation into what we like to call the wonderful world of patents. It's one of the many rabbit holes that exist in the world of intellectual property, and I'll get into some of it as the presentation goes along. This is not intended for this to be a be-all and end-all in investigation into all of intellectual property or even of patents, but of a very specific application of patent mining, that is using patent information as a source of technological information. It could be as a precursor for you filing your own patents, but more importantly, it's actually you accessing the solutions and inventions and inventive efforts of others and how to do it freely. We are emphasizing what we are showing you is to access information legally without getting involved into industrial espionage and that kind of thing. But it's there because the patent system is transparent for that reason, to allow people to access information. Use of the information, of course, will depend on where you plan to use it, but we'll explain that shortly. So I'm going to And this is my presentation. I'm going to share my screen now. Right, I hope everyone can see that. Okay, we're seeing this? Great. Okay, we just call it patent mining 101. Now, what we're talking about is under the broad rubric of intellectual property and a subset called industrial property. This is not copyright and related rights. Copyright and related rights concern literary and artistic works. That is things like books and movies and sculptures and plays and software works of mass. Anything that's literary or artistic that falls under copyright and related rights. And those kind of rights are territorial rights. Sorry, they're not territorial, they're automatic rights. They're automatic. That means they're rights anywhere in the world automatically. The contrast is industrial property, which consists of patents and trademarks and designs, plant varieties, etc. These are considered territorial rights. And there are application processes to get most of these. Okay, and these are valid in the country in which they are granted. And this is a very important consideration because it means that if something is valid in one country, let's say there's a patent that's been granted in Japan and they never file it in Barbados, what it means is they cannot enforce it in Barbados, but somebody from Barbados, if they could understand Japanese, of course, can access the information and use it in Barbados freely. The one restriction is that they cannot file for a new patent themselves with the same information, and they cannot export the product or the technology back into Japan because the Japanese market is covered or protected for that technology. That's the implication. Okay. So just to let you know where we are, the Intellectual Property Office of Trinidad and Tobago is part of the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Legal Affairs. And we are empowered under the Patents Act, Chapter 276. So one of the things that we are responsible for is provision of patent literature and also the provision of searches, freedom to operate searches, and the promotion of inventiveness among citizens. Okay. Just to give you a quick rundown as to how to get a patent or the criteria. The fundamental criteria are three things. The invention must be novel. It must be brand new in the whole wide world. Okay. It must have an inventive step or be non-obvious to someone with average skill in that art. So it must not be obvious to somebody who knows about these things. It must be non-obvious to them. And the third criterion it must be industrially applicable, or it must have a use in industry, or in short, it must work, must have a technical effect. It can't be theoretical. It can't be what we call flying saucer science. You might be wondering why I have a quick rundown there, the evolution of toilet paper. It's just to illustrate how the technology can be improved over time, and also to let you know that what you're using right now was invented since 1891 and still going strong. The improvement on that, though, is paperless toilets, paperless toilets. And the primary inventor or companies that make these are in Japan. If you go to Japan, you have a 60 to 70% chance of running into a paperless toilet, and the instructions might be in Japanese. But the premise is that when you're finished your business, you press your rinse cycle, you rinse. When you think you're clean enough, you press the dry cycle, and you blow dry you. Fantastic, huh? Now, some of your reactions tell you already that just because you have a a brand new invention does not mean that society is ready for it, no matter how clever you think it is. Okay, so, and remember that part of the premise of all of this is that these inventions are to support a business venture or business model, ultimately to sell products and services. If you cannot convince the market to acquire your product or service, then your patent or your intellectual property is not guarding anything useful as yet. Okay, so that's something to consider. The patent is a means to an end and not the end in itself. Okay, the ultimate aim, of course, in business is to sell product, make money. But that's just to give you a quick overview of the criteria for getting a patent. This might seem something, very few people might understand what these things are, but again, the evolution of car light bulbs, from the good old incandescent bulbs to, which are not included here, by the way, to what we know as halogen lights. That's the top left. And then we move to high intensity discharge lights, where the brightness increased, but the complexity also increased and the cost also increased. And now what is becoming increasingly common in cars now is LED lights, LED headlights. And the next frontier that they're moving up to, I think they exist on new BMWs, and I think some of the new high-end Audis, are laser lights now, where the laser goes through it's scattered though, it's diffused, but it's super bright, uses very little power, but it's also a lot more expensive and a lot more complex. So you'll no longer be able to change bulbs or have a handful of bulbs in your car like you do for your ordinary incandescent lights. But that's the advance of technology. So the primary, just to let you know, what we are primarily going to teach you or demonstrate for you here is this is a fishing exercise or a fishing expedition, and we're going to teach you where to fish for patents. Yes, it's called patent mining, but some people might be more familiar with the fishing analogy. And this list here shows it is just demonstrating some of our favorite fishing spots. And that is governed because that is so because these offices tend to represent the larger markets for technology. And therefore the likelihood that somebody of interest to you would have filed in those jurisdictions is higher. Okay? So there's a higher chance that you'd find certain technologies in the US or European market than you would find, say, in the Trinidad and Tobago market. So the first one there is the USPTO, that's the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and that's the website there. I did double check all of these links. I think they're gonna make they could make these slides available to you in PDF form eventually. The European Patent Office through ISPASnet. Patent Scope is a tool or the service of the World Intellectual Property Organization, which is part of the United Nations based in Geneva. OSPAT is the Australian Patent Office. And then you have good old Google Patents, which is more closely linked to the USPTO patent lists. I was saying these are some of the more heavily used patent databases because they represent some of the larger markets. So you have a higher likelihood of getting a patent recognized or licensed if you file it in one of the larger markets. So there's a higher chance that whatever you're looking for is in United States Patent and Trademark Office or the European Patent Office or Patent Scope or SPAT. I was also saying you can find new inventions also simply on Google, Amazon. There are quite a few people who came to us with what they thought was a new invention, and the product was already on Amazon for $29.95. Okay, so just don't underestimate when new things could show up first, that in an accessible form. The last two, RxList and the FDA Orange Book, are specific to pharmaceuticals. Okay, that's very specific. Now, when we strictly speak about patent mining, there's one sense where it applies really to very large companies who have huge patent portfolios, and it's very difficult to keep track of everything when your collection is that large. And sometimes remember these patents, anybody who has a patent knows that there's a cost to maintain them. So sometimes they have to audit. When we say audit, like check to see which ones are making money, which ones are not making money, and get rid of the ones that are not making money. And that's strictly speaking an audit of your patent portfolio. That is not the primary purpose for you guys. I'm just letting you know that this is also another interpretation of what we call patent mining. Okay. I'm gonna go to the, what we typically see from inventors. Some of the trends. Most of the requests that come to office are from individual inventors, then pharmaceutical importers, and we get very few from local manufacturers. We notice that many inventors haven't, especially local inventors, haven't given a lot of deep thought to commercialization, or the inventions are simply not novel, meaning that they haven't done enough homework or research. So 9 out of 10 of them are simply not new, and they don't know until they come to the office and find out. And when we're demonstrating it, we're going to show you that using even ordinary Google, because some of the inventors think that we are using a special Google to find the inventions. Ordinary Google will find most of them. Okay. The patent system is really, it's set up to publish that information to avoid duplication efforts. So to avoid new inventors reinventing wheels, so that you can avoid infringing somebody else's already granted patent, to give you access to 80% of the world's technology, because if you restrict your reading to libraries, even the best libraries in the world contain only 20% of the published technical literature. You can get to find licensing opportunities. Who has what? Who's the hottest inventor in which bleeding edge area? Okay. Who else has it? Who, in case one inventor tells you that they're the only one, and that you have to talk to them, you might find that there are others that you can negotiate with. Monitoring technological development is a nice way to say tobacco. To see what's going on in general, and you can see what's going on with specific companies. You can locate specific solutions to technical problems. You can monitor what your competition is doing, or who's an expert, to get new ideas. You can find out what's the legal status to see, is that thing granted in my country, not granted, expiring next year. This is good tactical information for anybody getting into that kind of business. Okay, to see how new am I. Okay, to see where else did they file it. I'm not going to read through all of these, but just to let you know that there's some good rationales for getting this information. There's a lot that you can extract. And just to give you, this is an example here. It's a cautionary tale, let's put it that way. About 9 years ago or so, an attorney came to our office, did not tell us what they were looking for, and asked to search or published patent registers, which are available to the public. We found out later that they were searching for a drug called Lipitor, which is a cholesterol-reducing drug. It's one of the statin drugs. And they searched up and down, and they didn't find the patent granted for Lipitor. Then they promptly went and informed their clients that they can import generic versions of Lipitor into Trinidad and Tobago. The shipment arrived and got seized at the port because there were in fact 8 patents surrounding this drug Lipitor valid in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, they didn't ask us, and they went off and misinformed their clients. Now, here's the danger. Pharmaceuticals, they consist of some miserable organic chemistry. I'm hazarding a guess that this young attorney was not versed in that much chemistry and did a word search. Now I can tell you, and I tested this a few days ago. You can search up and down the United States Patent and Trademark Office in 10 million granted patents, and you will not find anything with the word Lipitor in it. You will find several patents with the name atorvastatin in it. And then if you're looking for this particular drug patent, you have to use, you see that IUPAC name at the bottom there? That long heptanoic acid? That you will find. Now, unless you know your organic chemistry to a T, you're not going to know what to look for in some specific cases. If you're looking for brand names, you're not going to find anything by its brand name. You need to know the chemical name, the IUPAC name. Okay, you need to know some details. You can find some things with word searches, but we're going to show you how to use some level of word searches. If we had a few days to spend, we would have time to teach you international patent classification, but that takes some time. So we're going to show you the introduction to word searches in here. I'm going to skip this one. Now, if you're doing some tactical information, this is a compilation. This is something I got from Car and Driver magazine some years ago. And what they did, they compiled some stats on which car companies or automotive manufacturers have the most patents in which areas. And if you're looking for most patents filed in automotive, it's Toyota, then Bosch, then Hyundai, then Honda, then Denso, Seiko Epson, then Daimler, then GM. It's interesting, huh? It's not necessarily the luxury car companies that file the most patents. It's the guys who are pushing the frontiers. And what are the most common patents filed? Well, the ones on propulsion, navigation, handling, safety and security, and entertainment. Of course, it gets more interesting. Fuel economy, Hyundai, then GM, then Ford. Telematics, GM. Autonomous driving, Toyota. Not Tesla, Toyota. And driver assistance, Bosch. Now, I think this list was published just before I think Hyundai launched its Ioniq hybrid vehicle and electric vehicles. And it tells you that if you were studying that the build-up, that they were doing a lot of work in that area, protecting what they discovered, and then they launched the vehicle line. So if you're into that kind of research, you can get a lot of intel as to what companies are doing next, simply by seeing, well, what types of patents they're filing in recent times. Okay, so I'm just gonna skip these two. I'm not gonna read through the entire slide list. I think I had based on what I just shared here, we have a couple of poll questions we would like to run by participants right now. So I'm gonna stop sharing. I'd indicated to the organizers that we just want to pause and test your knowledge a little bit, if you make sure you're paying attention. And they're going to administer a couple of poll questions just to see what you think. So a patent has been granted by our office in Trinidad and Tobago, right? But the inventor lives in Tobago. So we want to know, is it valid in which country? And I gave some options there: Tobago, Barbados, TNT, CARICOM even. All right, we got that. Not Tobago? Somebody suggested Tobago. Great. We have about 40 seconds more. Come on, place your bets, place your bets. What's the correct answer? Congratulations to all of you who selected Trinidad and Tobago. As much as Tobago would like to have its own props, and we'd like to big up the Tobago boy for getting his patent, he's still a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, and the patent is valid in Trinidad and Tobago, which is good to know. It's valid in the country in which it was granted. Um, those who actually voted for CARICOM, you're not too far off yet. We are working on something akin to a regional patent administration, but that's some years away. And that is the ideal. We would like to get to that point where what is granted in the region is valid in the entire region, but we're not there yet. But thanks for being forward thinking. Okay, right. I had one more question. Here's a controversial one, and I don't know how many of you know about the original steel pan as invented by Spree Simon. Is that one I'm thinking about? That old one, Spree Simon's patent. Well, Spree Simon's invention. Sorry. Could he have gotten a patent? Or can you get a patent now? Is the question. Can you get a patent now on the original steel pan that was invented more than 50 years ago? Actually, more than 70 years ago, as I think about it. Keep going, keep going. Ah, boy, people don't hold out much luck for getting a. Okay, great. All right, thanks for digging in. Okay, if you're thinking about the original steel pan as invented 70 something years ago, no, we cannot get a patent for it because it is no longer new. And when we say new, we didn't actually, I can't recall giving a criteria on what we mean by new. When we say new, we mean under our law, not published or not made available to the public more than 1 year before you file it in the office. In some countries, there is no grace period. If you release something to the public yesterday and then you try to approach the patent office tomorrow, they'll say it's not possible. You've disclosed it to the public already. So the original steel pan was disclosed to the public more than 70 years ago. You can't get a patent for that steel pan. However, if you improve on the steel pan and you of course you become now new, and if you have an inventive step and it works, you have industrial applicability, yes you can. And somebody called me the other day to ask, are there any patents in steel pan? Yes, there are. Yes, there are several patents on improvements to the steel pan, and sticks and pan sticks and pan stands and pan tuning stands and pan amplification and the shapes of pans and the construction of pans and hydroforming and venturi pans and all sorts of new things are there, and some things that are on the horizon which the inventors have spoken to me about, so I can't tell you, but when it busts it could be something else. Just waiting for the guy to come in and file. So we'll see. But people may have heard of the infamous G-pan. I don't know if you ever seen a G-pan or heard of G-pan, but it is an improvement on the original steel pan. Okay, thanks for running that poll. Right, now, before we break up into groups, I'm gonna run a couple demonstrations of websites. One website in particular where I'm gonna show you how to do some searches. I'm using the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Now, I'm going to show you how to get into it from scratch, from Google. Now, the United States Patent and Trademark Office is not the easiest patent website to use. I'm deliberately starting with that one because it's the most miserable one, actually. So some of the others are far more easy to use, but we're going to show you this one because this one requires you to actually pass your inquiries in with Boolean algebra, and you have to get back into all of you who didn't like algebra and equations. You might have to employ some of it if you're going to use this site. So if you recall, I had put up what United States Patent and Trademark Office.gov. Okay. It takes you to the straight to the website, right? Under patents, we're gonna go to search. I'm gonna blow up my screen in a while when I get to the search mask. Okay, search for patents. Now, in the search for patents, you're gonna see some links. So here's the full text and image database, and then they have there's a patent application database. So we're going to be looking in the patent full text, which is for granted patents. So you have a choice: quick search, advanced search, patent number search if you know the exact number. I'm just going to dive straight into the advanced search to show you how to frame some your requests. Now, underneath here, now what I'm showing you is something that's totally learnable. When I first joined the office many years ago, and nobody instructed us on how to use this, I stumbled upon it. I followed the instructions below. What are the field codes? You see all these codes here: the number code, issue date, title, abstract, claims, and on the right side, you see inventor name, inventor city, inventor state. So just to give you a little teasers to, if you wanted to macro some patents. We mentioned steel pan, and you may know that the current principal of the St. Augustine campus of UWI, Professor Brian Copeland, was the primary inventor for that G-pan. So his name, even though it's the invention is assigned to the government of Trinidad and Tobago, he is the inventor. He remains the inventor no matter what happens to the patent. So the code for inventor name is IN. So according to the example, we put in IN. It's not case sensitive. And there's a slash. And let's try Brian. And we have to use an operator called and Copeland. Let's see if you find now it's turned up 302 matching patterns with some inventor in their name, Brian or Copeland or somewhere in his name. Now we don't have time, I don't have time to go through 302 applications here. So what do? I tried to narrow it down. Now I know it's dealing something with a steel pan. So, and here's the algebra part. We go to the start, we put brackets. We put that term in bracket, and then I add another one. Oh, yeah, I have it pre-done for you. So I look in the abstract or ABST, and I look for the word steel pan. So I'm looking for matching patterns with an inventor named Brian and Copeland somewhere in there, matching with an abstract with referring to a steel pan. That should narrow it down. Ta-da! It went from 302 to 3. And this looks very applicable. And you notice there are 2 applications to the GPAN and one for another invention he has in there. It's called a 5-pan, which is an electronic pan. But I'm going to go to the first one, the G-pan musical instrument. Now, it's called the full text and image database. Now, the first information that comes up is the text only with no drawings and diagrams. So you see, here's the relevant information. There's a title. It's a US patent. And on the right, it's got its grant number and the date of grant. So this was granted since July 6th, 2010. There's an abstract, which is a synopsis of the full text. You see his information there. Copeland Brian R. San Fernando TT, yay! Assignee, no, the owner is the government of Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. It was filed since July 8, 2008. And then it goes down, prior, how it got in, right, the patent corporate treaty and the nearest matching patents to it. U.S. patent documents. What they'll cite? They'll cite the closest things we found to this invention are these patents, both U.S. and foreign. And what he was allowed to keep was whatever didn't resemble any of these previous inventions, right? So it starts with the claims. Now the claims are the really tricky part of the invention. That outline the legal territory of the invention. What does he own, or what does the government own in the U.S.? Okay, so I'm just giving a scroll through of the legal claims, and then it gets into the detailed description how it works or how it's built. Now there are no drawings on this page. If you want to get the drawings or the full published document, you have to go to images. Now we have to blow this up. So you see more or less the same information, but it's presented as it is actually published, if it was published in paper. Same information, title, inventor, owner, abstract, and more importantly, now we can get see the drawings. What makes this thing tick? You can save some time and go to the drawings, straight to the drawings tab. I don't know how many you all know anything about steel pans, but you realize that there's some differences in the shapes of the notes, and these are optimized shapes. And one thing that's made possible, I don't know if you know how pans are, but typically in a tenor pan, in the center, the third octave, there's usually just enough metal because it's heavily stretched to raise maybe 3 or 5 of the notes in the center. But because one of the features of the G-pan is that they weld in an extra piece of metal in the middle there, they laser weld in an extra piece of metal in here, you have fresh metal now to stretch and to form all of these notes. That is a fantastic improvement in range of the instrument. Okay. The drawings will consist of just some of the technical features of the different components in the band. This gets into the attachment, because this is a sheet metal that has been shaped. It is not made from a drum, the traditional drum. They use sheet metal and they deform it, weld. There's a separate skirt that welds on, and then there's a separate bowl that attaches to that. So it's 2 bowls with an opening at the bottom that assist in the tone. And these steel pans, I don't know if you ever heard them, they're extra loud. They're very resonant. What we're saying is that you can get into the nitty-gritty here of how it's constructed without having to go anywhere. You can, and this applies to every invention that's published. Okay, so I'm just gonna back out of here. I just wanted to show that one for some local interests. One other, as I mentioned, this is really a source of technological information. If you wanted to get into some high-tech areas. Now, one of my favorite areas that I like to talk about is synthetic diamonds. Okay, and I could simply say, okay, I'm looking for synthetic and diamonds. And as you can guess, what will happen is I'm going to get hundreds of patents. So that means what? I'm going to have to narrow it down. So one of the operators I'll use, because I know the name of a company, is a company called Apollo Diamond. And $10, right? That's manageable. And this is where I first discovered this this technology. And why am I raising this one as so great and so fantastic? This patent belongs to Apollo Diamond. They have a process called chemical vapor deposition, and this document gives all the specs and the pressures and temperatures and how to build a reactor. What you're doing, you're running methane gas with a hot filament with a high voltage and an arc at low pressure, like 1/4 of atmospheric pressure, with a full vacuum, and they're able to deposit synthetic monocrystalline diamond on any object. And you can form layers and grow crystals. So imagine that, just using electricity, high voltage, and methane gas, you can generate diamonds. How's that sound? What do we have a lot of in Trinidad and Tobago? You realize that just looking through, you can actually hatch a whole business right here in Trinidad using local resources. And people think that downstream of the oil and gas sector or the gas sector is just methanol and urea. I'm saying to it could also be synthetic diamonds. Just giving you throwing that out there for you. People ask what you plan to do later, and I say, well, this looks like a nice retirement project to build a reactor and start trying out some of these patterns, these technologies. This is just one I'm throwing out there because there's so many opportunities that you can have using this. Okay, let's stop sharing. Right, as we said, we promised this is primarily a fishing expedition, but not to watch me fish. It's for you to learn to fish. So at this time, we are supposed to be broken up into breakout rooms. And I have some of my colleagues, Nicholas Guy Prasad and Falashide Bishop, will be walking you through an exercise, or a couple exercises, and we want you on your machines to try it yourself. And we're gonna try it at the USPTO, and then we're gonna probably try SPASnet or the EPO site. So if Gavin could assign us to our respective breakout rooms, we can try this exercise, which is not supposed to take very long, but it's important for you to learn how to do it instead of just watching somebody do it. Because when you get into these sites, you can bookmark the sites, and some of them actually can save your searches, etc. And it's something you need to practice with. So you can spend a lot of time digging through these things. If you're a technology junkie, there's a lot to see and a lot to read. But it helps if you have a specific need, and so you can focus your search quest. Big companies use this all the time because what happens sometimes in very big companies, they forget what they have invented already, and they sometimes end up almost going to spend money again to do the same R&D again for something that they already did. And I have some stories about that where people found out that they own the solution that they were looking for because somebody solved it and retired, and the rest of the company forgot that we own that and was going to spend money in R&D. Okay, so if persons have any questions, that's no problem. I hope you guys take some time to go and play with the searches, but just understand that to be absolutely sure, and especially if you plan to seek patent protection, you really should come and check us at the Intellectual Property Office just to be very certain. We meet many people who assure us that they've searched for this thing up and down and they haven't found anything. Okay, our office is located on the 3rd floor of Capital Plaza, which is downtown Port of Spain. If you're older like me, you might know it as Colsod Mall. It's now called Capital Plaza. It's probably the tallest building on Lower Frederick Street. So we are between Excellent City and Mickles. That tall building, most people don't look up when they walk down there. But we're on the 3rd floor, the entire 3rd floor. Okay, Raymond James. We had 2 factors that we knew about him: his name, and we found out 4,008 Raymond Jameses, and then we paired it with the word package in the abstract. And if you were in my group, we did package security and got it. Or if you want to go straight to the point and you use this smart search in ESPASnet, that's the European Patent Office, we just put in Raymond James, plain language, Raymond James package security, and it took us straight to the document. No and, no slash, no in, and none of that. So the smart search, if you want to take the hassle out of it and you don't want to do all that math, you can try the smart search in the ESPASnet at the European Patent Office. How long can your work be in use before going into the public domain? If it's a patented invention that is valid in your country or wherever you reside, it can, under our law, it lasts only up to 20 years from the date of the effective date of filing. So the duration is 20 years. There are no provisions for extensions of patent terms in TT law, that is. So after 20 years, it goes into the public domain. And remember also, it's territorial. So while we were looking online for US inventions, if they are not filed in Trinidad and Tobago, they are not valid in Trinidad and Tobago, and we can actually use the technology. Let me now don't go and do the boy this, but technically, if Raymond James doesn't file in Trinidad and Tobago, we could huff the invention. If you look at his specs and figure, I can make one of those, because he hasn't filed in Trinidad as yet, and I'm not sure when. I think time would have gone. If he filed in May or June, yeah, I think the time has gone. If he didn't file within a certain window of filing in the US, it's too late for him to file in Trinidad and Tobago. Right. Or filing costs. Well, when we talk of patent information, that's free. But if you're interested in filing a patent, that depends on, and the filing costs in Trinidad and Tobago consists of a $2,000 application fee. We will then examine it for formal requirements, and then invite you to pay $1,500 search and examination fee, where we perform substantive examination. That's when we really dig into the novelty, inventive step, industrial applicability. If we grant it, you pay a $500 grant and publication fee, and we publish it, and then we give you a certificate. So you're looking at a very neat $4,000 nominally in administrative fees, if nothing is to be corrected. If you have to make any amendments, it's $250 per amendment that if we ask you to make, okay? So it's giving you a ballpark, roughly $4,000 in administrative fees for patent applications. That does not cover the cost of your attorney or your patent attorney to draft this document. And I hope you guys appreciate that these are very complex documents that require some skilled persons to put them together for you. Okay? Yes, 4Gs. Okay, if somebody has a patent in US but didn't file in Trinidad, it can be used in Trinidad, but the product can be exported, but not to the US. And anywhere else they have that patent granted. So why I was very interested in when I first learned about synthetic diamonds back in 2009, I checked around the world, and the first set of patents were not filed anywhere else in the world. So they left a gap there if you're interested in manufacturing and exporting. So yes, you can manufacture and use in TNT and in any other country where it has not been filed. That means you have to do some homework, some groundwork first to check. Here's a good question. Can you expand on the amendments? Now, if you file a patent and we ask you to amend, we always state there's a footnote. Your amendment must not extend the subject matter of the patent. So you file something for a mechanical device and you suddenly get an idea, I should have put an electronic control, which some inventors actually try doing. If you never mention the word electronic control anywhere in the original document, you cannot suddenly add it later. When you file, just understand this, when you actually put together a patent document and you file it, it's almost like it's frozen in time. It's frozen on that date. And you're restricted to making amendments with the content, things that you discussed inside of that document. If there's something you wish to add that was not in the original document, you cannot add it afterwards. So it's very important to strongly consider what you're compiling in your filing. Okay. I think that's at the end of my questions. Oh, can we search online for patents filed in Trinidad? Sorry, not yet. We just have the trademark search up. We are getting that organized, but we're installing something called WIPO Publish, which would give us full access to trademarks and patents. We're also doing some validation of the data. Okay, but I'll say this too: the majority of the patents that get filed in Trinidad and Tobago are from foreign applicants. So chances are something that you're looking for was filed already somewhere else before you got to Trinidad. There are very few patents, and there are a few patents though that are filed by trainees, like 1 or 2 per year, filed by trainees in Trinidad and Tobago, but they very seldom file in Trinidad and Tobago only. And chances are they also file in the US and in Europe. And if we had some more time, I'd have gone and show you the trainee inventors who have the countries as TT in other countries, and we could have done it by if you're in the USPTO ICN inventor country, and then then you put TT, and then you'd get all the TT applications. Somebody was asking me about were there any Jamaican inventors? I said yes, and there's some famous Jamaican inventors who got something for I think treatment for cancer or something like that 2 years ago. Can we do anything online in Trinidad and Tobago yet? Yes, you can file your applications online at the USPT at the TT IPO. We have our system is fully online as far as applications go. Patents, trademarks, industrial designs, everything. You can integrated circuit somebody file, and you can also pay by credit card online. Just to let you know. Yes, you can do lots of stuff online. We just don't have the patent search up as yet. Number to call. If they distribute my presentation in PDF, the contacts at the end, but try and remember this number: 226-4-IPO or 226-4476. And there's let me put it in the chat here. That's the office number. There's a generic email address that I check: info@ipo.gov.tt. Okay.
Right, Richard. So after the last question, I don't know, we need to have
feature
presentation.
Yeah. The search features come. We're not too sure if it's by the end of not this year, but early next year, because we have to do a lot of testing to do first before we set it free.
So let's welcome Mr. Kristen Maraj, who will now share with you how we can access our Export TT fund. Kristen Maraj, over to you.
All right. Hi. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Mr. Aching and the entire team at the IPO for doing a wonderful job, as you always do, and giving us that excellent lesson in fishing. It was one of the best fishing lessons that I've ever been to, and only been to two. One was literally fishing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through what we have at Export TT that could complement the work that's being done by the IPO, and also assist companies in terms of their innovation and securing their intellectual property. So what I'll do is share this presentation and we'll get into it. Which I'm doing wrong. Right. So just get this. Okay. So at Export TT, we have different types of, what I'm going to talk to you about briefly this morning is really more about funding that's available for the kind of work that you would want to do. So we have a service called the co-financing facility. It is actually co-funding in that any grants or any sort of financing you get is not repaid. So it's not a loan per se. Is a common misconception that people have that we do loans at Export TT. We do not. So everything I'm talking about is grant funding. So we have the co-financing facility, and this is developed to provide financial support for companies who want to enter export markets or actually enter in exports in general, is to offset some of the costs of activities that are involved in getting into new export markets or to at least start exporting. So how it works is that 50% of certain export-related activities will be covered by Export TT, meaning that you, the clients, would have to basically just come up with 50% of what is required for your activities to be done. So on the presentation here, I have two areas highlighted in red. So two of these activities would be product and or company registration in overseas markets, as well as intellectual property registration in overseas markets. So the last thing we spoke to Mr. Aching about was actually the costs of filing your patents. And he ran through the costs of getting it done in Trinidad to have a local patent. This co-financing can help you when it comes to securing that patent in your export market or your intended export market. So you can access co-financing for that, as well as for product and company registration. So this includes trademark. I know this was actually more what was covered in the session last week, but it also assists with covering some of the costs for your trademarks. So just generally telling you a little more about co-financing, it can be used to offset other export-related activities such as product testing, shipping of samples, translation and interpretation, including translation of documents, first-time website development. And what we added as well is financial auditing, specifically for the purpose of accessing financing or funding, because we realized that a lot of grants and financing options that are available require audited financials. Audited financials in themselves are very expensive, and that could be a major hurdle right there. So we added that to what's covered in co-financing as well. So co-financing, there's an annual limit. We go with our fiscal calendar, which starts in October. So small companies can generate less than or equal to 8 million can access up to 35,000 TT for co-financing for various activities. throughout the year. So how this works is that you could think about it as a drawdown that you can access to offset some of your export related costs. And in this case, coming out of the session after that wonderful fishing lesson from Mr. Atching, you might be thinking about filing your patents. Medium companies can access up to 45,000 annually, and large companies can access up to 60,000. So we have the research and development facility as well. This is a grant that is to stimulate the level of innovation in companies in Trinidad and Tobago, with the end goal of increasing your exports. But this is true innovation. This is true new product development or new process implementation. This is here to basically help you move away from the same old, to be able to expand the exports and to be have exports as a viable option for you. So how it works is that there are 3 phases of the research and development facility. Phase 1 is to establish the technical merit, feasibility, or commercial potential. So this is essentially a feasibility study that's done before you even start your development of your new product or service. And this covers 70% of the cost to a limit of 100,000. Phase 2 is the actual new product and service development activity or project. So this covers 50% of the cost to a maximum of 750,000 TT. Now in this phase, you can also include securing your intellectual property, which could be a high cost depending on how many markets you want to secure your intellectual property in to register your patents, your trademarks as well. And then there's a phase 3 to pursue commercialization. So how this works is that you can only access phase 3 to commercialize what was developed coming out of phase 2, meaning you had to be successful for a phase 2 grant to be able to access it. Phase 3 to commercialize what was developed in that phase 2. So in terms of application, you can apply right off the bat, you can apply for phase 1 or phase 2. And I'll take a few minutes and run through your website to show you how you go about doing that. Now, we have something in development. There's not much I can say about it right now because this actually has to be taken to cabinet, and a cabinet note is being developed right now for this. This is innovation vouchers. And how it's going to work is that these would be a line of credit that you'll get through Export TT that you could use for research and development and innovation activities with universities, public and private research institutions, both local and international. So we are in the process of developing the policy for this. What I can say is that you can expect to see by mid-January some communication from Export TT as to how you apply to access the innovation vouchers. All right, so again, the voucher is quite similar to a physical voucher used for sales, where it's some credit that you have that you can use at different institutions to assist with your innovation and securing intellectual property as well, because we cannot talk about innovation and intellectual property in 2 separate silos. They have to work hand in hand. In the presentation today, you saw that you cannot just take your idea and throw it out into the public domain, because then you might lose your ability to secure your intellectual property for that. So how these innovation vouchers would work is that for small companies, there will be up to 200. Well, this is what's being proposed. I can't say it's set in stone as yet, but we are very far along in the process of having this finalized. For small companies, they can access up to 200,000. Medium companies, up to 200,000, covering 80% of the costs. So it's 80% a limit of 200,000 then. For large companies, 70% to a limit of 200,000. Export TT will be in touch with the public and with you, our clients, to let you know how this is progressing and how soon you can start to apply for this. Like I said, right now we're in the process of developing the policy. As soon as this is done and we get that cabinet approval, we will move forward with this and we will open it up for applications. So that essentially is my short presentation on what we have that could assist and supplement the work that's being done by the Intellectual Property Office. We are also in discussion with the Intellectual Property Office to work on ways that there can be further collaboration between Export TT and the IPO to strengthen the national IPO policy, which will, benefit everyone across the board. And that sort of strengthening is happening. What we're doing right now is we are in the process of sharing our services on both the IPOs and Export TT's websites. And we have collaborative outreach like this right now. And once again, I want to thank the IPO for the opportunity to present on what Export TT can bring to the table as well. We'll continue to do this kind of shared outreach. So what I'll do now is I'll just go into the website and I'll show you all how you apply for this. Oh, before we continue, I need to mention that you cannot apply for anything after the fact, meaning you cannot incur costs, pay everything, and then apply to get reimbursement or get any cost offset. Everything has to be done and approved before you actually make any payment for any of these services done. We can't do it retroactively. So bear that in mind, and let me walk you through the website. Okay, actually, I need to stop sharing this presentation and actually share my screen. Give me 1 minute, please. We go to Export TT's website, which is exporttt.co.tt. So on the splash screen, you'll see enter or register. You can just go ahead and enter the website. Right, now in the website, to access the additional information and the application forms for the stuff I spoke about, you go to Export Resources, and this drop down at the top, you go to Financing Facilities. And there you'll see RDF, co-financing. There's some other grants that we have for standards implementation, Grant Fund Facility, which is for equipment, and the Cultural and Creative Industries Innovation Fund. So to access, let's look at the RDF and co-financing that we discussed this morning. So you go to RDF. There's some general information here. As you scroll down to the right, you'll see that little button, which can be hard to see because it's the same color as the banner there. That apply now. When you click there, you get your application form. It's a similar process for the co-financing. So you go back to the main drop down, co-financing. Right, information and application to your bottom right. So if you have any questions on how you go about navigating that, you can feel free to contact myself or anyone else at Export TT. Everyone has Judy's contact info. My contact info is, my cell number is 796-4276. And my email address is Chrisen, let me pull up the presentation, you'll see it there. Right. So my email, actually I didn't write it in, is chrisen.maharaj@exporttt.co.tt. So that's, sorry, it's C Maharaj gt.co.tt. Right, that's my email address there. So feel free to contact me or anyone else at Export TT. And we will guide you through this process, and we can see how we could assist in getting things done to implement what was discussed with the IPO this morning. Because what's important about these sessions is not just the information, but using the information and making sure that it's something practical and worthwhile for you to do. Everything that we do here, well, at Export TT, is to ensure your ability to become an exporter or become a better exporter. And the IPO is a big part of that process. So thank you all very much for your time and sharing the morning with us. And I guess we can open it up to some questions. Yeah. All right. How do we do it, Judy? Do I just go through?
What we do is we use the chat. Any questions that we have, persons will put it in the chat. But I think they are very overwhelmed by the fact that they could actually go fish on these websites. So I think it may have done a very good job.
All right.
Any questions, please put it in the chat box to everyone.
Karen has a question. What defines small, medium, and large companies for the voucher? It's the same definition that we use for the co-financing. So small is generating revenue of up to 8 million. Medium is 8 to 15 million. And large is, well, above the 15 million. So, yeah. Well, you all have my contact info. And I know there's a lot to absorb and internalize this morning. So feel free to contact us at Export TT and the Intellectual Property Office.
Thank you, gentlemen. Richard for showing us how to fish, and Kristen for that insightful information shared with our clients today.